Before this season started, I believed that the Atlanta Hawks were going to make the playoffs. My prediction was something around a 7th seed for this Hawks team, and a bunch of people told me that they just weren't that good. This team wasn't good, their coaching wasn't good, their players weren't that good, yada yada yada. And after about a month, I really started to believe people, I was high on this Hawks team. They have a whole lot of talent, especially on the offensive end, but they just played like frickin' butt doo-doo out there to start the season. They were terrible, really terrible on defense, but even their offense just didn't look as good as you expected it to be, and it didn't help that they had quite a few injuries that never really allowed them to get a full starting lineup, and hell, even this far into the season, they still haven't. However, after starting the season 14-20, they finally fired their coach, Lloyd Pierce. And Lloyd Pierce doesn't seem like a bad dude or anything, but the man was clearly not a very good coach, because when they replaced him with Nate McMillan, who's known as a, let's say, pretty average coach, I would say, not terrible, but not great, they replaced him, and Nate McMillan got this team running. Since Nate McMillan has been hired, the Atlanta Hawks have gone 16-6 and ended up with an overall record this season of 30-26, which doesn't sound that great, but 16-6 under McMillan is about a 50-win season, which is pretty freaking crazy for a team that started the year with a terrible win season. They looked like they were going to win like 30 games. And now, seemingly out of nowhere, they're the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. Now, part of that is because the Eastern Conference has been really bad this year. Okay, a 30-26 team should not be a 4 seed, ever. But nevertheless, they are the 4th seed, and that's pretty freaking crazy, considering this team just did not have these expectations, especially after starting the season so badly. Their offense has made it up to 8th, and their defense has made it up to 22nd, which is great, because before firing McMillan, I believe, and let me check here if I've got it on here, their offensive rating before was 11th, and their defense was 23rd, so it hasn't gone up that much, but that's still a significant jump, okay? And their net rating has gone up quite a bit, from about 15th to about 10th. Nate McMillan has just turned this team around, and he really has made the Hawks look like a team that you don't really want to face in the playoffs because of their offensive talent. Yeah, defense is never going to be this team's calling card. It's just not. However, they do have Clint Capella at the center position, who's a very solid defender, and if Onyeka Okongwu can ever manage to stay healthy for a decent amount of time this season, he looks to be a pretty solid backup center. The dude hasn't done much this year, but let me tell you, Onyeka has a very high ceiling as a defensive player especially, and even on offense, he could be a very good center for this team one day. Don't sleep on that dude. I like Okongwu a lot. Now, other than him, they've got some other defensive talent. Trae Young has actually looked slightly better under McMillan. Not that he's, even close to being an average defender. I'm not sure he ever will be. But not being the worst defender in the league is a pretty nice change. DeAndre Hunter, meanwhile, is another guy who's missed a lot of time with injuries. But when he plays, he's a very good defensive player. I could see this team eventually being about an average defense, just with the talent they have. John Collins is pretty good on defense when he wants to be. And they've got some other guys who are just alright on that end. Similar to Kevin Huerter is sometimes okay. Cam Reddish, same thing. Although Cam Reddish definitely has a higher defensive ceiling. This team just has a lot of talent that was not used properly under Lloyd Pierce. And I kind of understand what his system was. From what I know about Lloyd Pierce, he basically wanted to create the Warriors 2.0. He wanted to have this word that I loved hearing Brett Brown say when he was on the Sixers. Just kidding, I didn't. This free-flowing offense where he didn't really, interfere too much. He just kind of let them go out there and do their thing. And the thing is, that just doesn't work. Really, the Warriors are an exception, and even then, I think Steve Kerr has a little bit more influence over what they do than people tend to think he does. Just because Steph Curry and Draymond Green and those guys lead so well on the floor, and they carry out what they're doing so well, Steve Kerr still is very involved in the coaching. It's not like he just sits on his butt all day and he's like, yeah, go do your thing, Steph, hit your threes, blah, 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 blah. So Yeah, free-flowing offense, not an offense I'm a fan of. I didn't like it with Brett Brown, and clearly it didn't work for the Hawks. Especially the Hawks are so freaking young, too. You can't just ask a whole bunch of players who are like 23 to go out there and do their thing. They don't know what they're doing. They've been so much better under McMillan. It's crazy. Trae Young has kind of fallen off a little bit after his crazy start to the season, but he has gotten better over the last few weeks. He's averaging 25 and 10 on pretty solid efficiency, not amazing efficiency, certainly not Steph Curry efficiency like you might have wanted, but he is getting his team into the offense more, and I think that was part of his problem in the middle of the season, was when you watched him, he just kind of hijacked the offense. He took these really bad threes, they were like Damian Lillard range, but the thing is, even Dame and Curry don't take those all the time. They take them when they feel them. Trae Young would just kind of chuck them up a lot, and they just didn't go in enough to be worth it. He really hurt his, I'm not going to say he hurt his team's offense. He was the best player on the offense, no question, but it kind of hurt the flow. I feel like he's doing that a little bit less now, makes the team a little bit better. And again, they've had a bunch of injuries. DeAndre Hunter has barely played this season. Cam Reddish has missed a lot of games. Bojan Bogdanovic has missed quite a few games. Sorry, Bogdan Bogdanovic, my bad. Lou Williams has gotten there, and he's been not great. I mean, his three-point shooting's been, like, really good. Like, 48% from threes, kind of insane, even if it's only on one attempt a game, or 2 attempts a game. But, 11 points. He's just a little bit more of a scorer off the bench. Gallows looked good. Cam Reddish. John Collins, again, a little underwhelming this season, considering, he's going to be a free agent and everything, but he is incredibly efficient. Kevin Huerter is having a down season, I would say. His efficiency's not that good, but you just don't even need him to be all that crazy good because there's so much offensive talent on this team. This team, I fully expect, assuming they keep most of this core together, to be the best offense in the NBA one day. And I don't think that's much of a stretch. You get an offense led by Trae Young, you get a whole bunch of great secondary scorers in Huerter, Hunter, Collins, if he stays there, Reddish, Bogdanovic, and Gallo, and then Clint Capella as a rim-running big who, does a pretty good job defending the paint on the other end, and you got frickin', what's-his-face, Okongwu coming off the bench. This team is good. And they finally are starting to look the way they really should have started looking at the beginning of last season. Nate McMillan may not be the best coach in the world, but he has done wonders for the Atlanta Hawks. And I gotta say, as a Sixers fan, we're currently in the 1 seed, which means we're likely to match up with the Hawks in the second round. And obviously, that's a much better team to match up with than the Bucks or the Nets, but I don't think it's going to be the easiest series in the world. I think people need to start paying attention to this team, and you look especially at the playoffs. It may be a stretch to call them a poor man's Nets, but you look at this team, who are you going to... There's nobody you can just leave open. They just have so much talent on this young team, and they're not there yet. All right, they're not a real threat yet. They're obviously not contenders, but you give it another year or two, you can really see how this team might be a very good, very dangerous team in the NBA in just a couple years. The Hawks are coming, people. Don't sleep on Atlanta, this team that's been kind of a joke for a long time, because even when they won 60 games back in 2015, nobody believed in them. People might need to start believing in them soon, because they're looking like they have a very, very bright future under Coach Nate McMillan.